Two sisters, one voice, one death. This is the true story of June and Jennifer Gibbons, twins who spoke only to each other, were deep in their own world, and made a chilling pact that would leave one of them dead and the other suddenly free. But was it a psychological mystery or something far more disturbing? In the early 1960s, Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons, Caribbean immigrants part of the Windrush generation, moved their young family from Barbados to the United Kingdom seeking a new life. Aubrey worked as a technician for the Royal Air Force, while Gloria managed the household and their growing family. After settling briefly in Coventry, the family expanded with the birth of twin girls, June and Jennifer Gibbons, on April 11th, 1963, at a military hospital in Aden, Yemen, where Aubrey was deployed. Shortly after, the family relocated back to England, before moving once again in 1974 to the quiet town of Haverfordwest in Wales. The twins grew increasingly inseparable during these frequent moves, developing an intense closeness that soon took on an unusual form. They spoke rapidly in what seemed like a secret language, which rendered them virtually incomprehensible even to their own parents. This language was later identified as a sped-up version of Bajang Creole, an English-based Creole language with West Central African and British influences, spoken on the Caribbean island of Barbados. June, years later, clarified that their strange speech wasn't intentionally secretive, but rather a severe speech impediment. "Nobody understood us," she explained. "Our parents couldn't make sense of our words, so we simply stopped speaking." What made it even harder for them was the fact that they were the only black family in their Welsh community, a factor that deeply intensified their sense of isolation. At school, June and Jennifer faced severe bullying, prompting administrators to allow them to leave early each day to avoid harassment. Their language evolved further, becoming even more impenetrable to outsiders, solidifying their isolation. Despite their obvious struggles, school officials initially overlooked the depth of their issues. It wasn't until 1974, during a routine health check, that medic John Rees noticed the twins' disturbingly passive and doll-like reaction to vaccinations. Alarmed by their unusual behavior, Rees contacted a child psychologist. A series of therapists attempted to break through the twins' silent barrier, but consistently failed, deepening the mystery surrounding June and Jennifer. By 1977, a speech therapist named Anne Treharne attempted a new approach. Though the twins refused to speak directly in her presence, they agreed to record their conversations privately. Treharne sensed a troubling dynamic between them, noting Jennifer's intense influence over June. "I felt her power. It was as if June was possessed by her sister." Frustrated by the lack of progress, specialists decided to separate the twins, sending them to different boarding schools in hopes of forcing them to develop independent identities. The result was disastrous. Rather than thriving apart, June and Jennifer became catatonic, withdrawn to the point of physical immobility. June had to be physically propped against a wall, described chillingly by caregivers as stiff and heavy as a corpse. In hindsight, their father, Aubrey, recalled noticing early signs of their unusual behavior, saying, "At home, they'd talk and make sounds, but we knew they weren't quite normal children." June herself later described their intertwined identities hauntingly. "One day, she'd wake up and be me, and one day, I'd wake up and be her. We used to beg each other, 'Give me back myself, and I'll give you back yourself.'" When they were finally reunited, the twins retreated even further into their private world, locking themselves in their bedroom for years. They spent their time conducting intricate doll-based plays and eventually turned their attention to creative writing. A pair of diaries gifted to them on Christmas 1979 sparked a new obsession. They enrolled in a mail-order wiring course and began crafting bizarre stories inspired by their inner world. Their writings were dark, often centered on crime and violence, and usually set in Malibu, California. June's novel, The Pepsi-Cola Addict, followed a teenage boy seduced by a teacher and later preyed upon by a guard in a reformatory. Jennifer's stories were equally grim. In The Pugilist, a physician murders a dog to transplant its heart into his dying child. In Discomania, a nightclub's atmosphere drives patrons to insanity. So, yeah, they were pretty disturbing. And it's no surprise that only one of their novels saw print, The Pepsi-Cola Addict. Still largely mute to the outside world, the twins attempted various methods to break their silence. They even took a course titled the art of conversation, but ultimately failed to engage. Eventually, they sought experience beyond the written world. By 1981, at age 21, June and Jennifer set out in search of an American boy they had known from school. Though he had moved to Philadelphia, they befriended his brothers, Jerry, Wayne, and Carl Kennedy. The Kennedy brothers introduced the girls to alcohol, drugs, and sex, which unexpectedly allowed the twins brief access to the outside world. June later said, "Without the whiskey, we didn't speak. We sniffed glue and lighter fluid. We were different then, laughing and talking." Though the Kennedy boys often ignored or insulted them, the attention was addictive. In one disturbing episode, Jennifer lost her virginity to Carl while June watched. The experience shattered their already fragile relationship, with June later writing, "There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal." Violence between the two escalated. June tried to drown Jennifer. Jennifer attempted to strangle June with a radio wire. Yet, despite everything, the jealousy, the trauma, they still described this period as the best time of their lives. As June put it, "It was 5 weeks of fun." But the fleeting joy ended when the Kennedy family returned to America, leaving the twins spiraling again into isolation and soon into crime. In the fall of 1981, the Gibbons twins' pent-up frustrations turned inward. Alone in their world once again, June and Jennifer began obsessively binging on food and then purging, a desperate attempt at control. Jennifer's diary read, "I will gain control over my mind, my body. I must be at peace with myself. I will want death if I have no peace. And who will cry at my funeral? Teenagers dies from diet, binge, life." June echoed the same torment. "I loathe food which destroys my soul. I bite into the body of my very enemy." Their psychological grip on reality continued to erode. Their love-hate relationship intensified, expressed in their diaries with both poetic longing and chilling resentment. June wrote, "Jennifer and I are like lovers. She thinks I am weak. She knows not how I fear her. I want to be strong enough to split from her." Jennifer responded, "She should have died at birth. Cain killed Abel. No twin should forget that." And by late 1981, that internal chaos began to spill outward. The twins attempted to join a local gang, but were rejected. Instead, they acted out alone, stealing bikes, breaking windows, drawing graffiti, and even calling the police to report themselves before fleeing the scene. June wrote in her diary about plans to become the biggest arsonist around, and on October 24th, 1981, they made good on that promise. That night, they broke into a tractor store and set it ablaze. June later recalled the event vividly in her diary. "It was the biggest night of my life. My lovely, glorious fire was licking its way through the roof. Oh, what a sinful, evil, selfish mind. I know the Lord will forgive me. Don't I deserve to express my distress?" Encouraged, they attempted to set a second fire on November 8th at Pembroke Technical College, but this time they were caught in the act. Their diaries, discovered by police, revealed the full extent of their crimes. June and Jennifer were arrested and held at Pucklechurch Remand Centre for 7 months, while the courts decided their fate. Life at Pucklechurch was just as volatile. The twins were placed together, but frequent fights led to multiple separations and reunifications. Their silence returned, complicating interactions with legal and medical staff. Dr. William Spry, one of their doctors, believed their condition bordered on schizophrenia. According to June's diary, Jennifer told the doctor she hears voices, sees visions, and wants to kill me. "I told him I'd like to kill her. I would strangle her. I said that only one of us should have been born." With mounting concern for their safety and mental health, the twins were declared dangerous to themselves and to society. Dr. Spry advocated for medical treatment over prison, and the courts agreed. June and Jennifer were sentenced indefinitely to Broadmoor Hospital under the Mental Health Act. What they found at Broadmoor was far from what they had hoped. The hospital was overcrowded and restrictive. They were separated again, placed on different wards and heavily medicated, antipsychotics, sedatives, tranquilizers. But their strange behavior continued. It was reported that some days only one twin would eat, and the next day the other would indulge as her sister starved. Nurses would find them frozen in the same pose, even though they were locked in cells on opposite ends of the hospital. Jennifer developed symptoms of tardive dyskinesia, a neurological syndrome that involves involuntary movements. Their ability to write and focus diminished, and their creative spark began to fade. Still, they continued their ritual of writing diaries. Their incarceration dragged on for years. Desperate for freedom, the twins tried to cooperate. "Look, you wanted us to talk. We're talking now," June told a doctor. The response? "You're not getting out. You're going to be here for 30 years. Outside, their parents began to doubt the system that had promised to help. Gloria Gibbons stated in a documentary, "They're not really mental. No mental person could have written the letters they sent me." Indeed, their writing remained articulate, poetic, and heart-wrenching. Jennifer wrote to June, "You are my only relationship. I know I'll die young and way before you, but it doesn't really matter. I only hope you'll be happy still." Unknowingly, that letter would become a haunting foreshadowing of what was yet to come. In March 1993, after 11 long years inside Broadmoor Hospital, the Gibbons twins were finally granted transfer to a lower security institution, Caswell Clinic in Wales. It should have marked the beginning of a new chapter, but instead, it became the end of one life and the strange beginning of another. In the days leading up to the move, Jennifer began acting unusually. Her speech became slurred, and she complained of feeling unwell. On the morning of their release, the sisters rode together in a transport vehicle, leaving Broadmoor behind at last. Jennifer lay in June's lap with her eyes open but unresponsive. She muttered her final words, "At long last, we're out." By the time they arrived at Caswell, Jennifer couldn't wake up. She was taken to a nearby hospital, where she was pronounced dead of acute myocarditis, a rare and sudden inflammation of the heart. At the time of her death, she was 29 years old. There were no drugs in her system, no poisons, no warning signs that would explain such a rapid and fatal condition. The doctors were baffled. Her identical twin, who had received the same treatment, medication, and care, was in perfect health. The mystery of Jennifer's death only deepened after journalist Marjorie Wallace, who had followed the twins' story for years, came forward with a chilling account. Just days before the transfer, Wallace visited the twins at Broadmoor. During their conversation, Jennifer looked her in the eye and said, Marjorie, I'm going to have to die." When asked why, Jennifer simply responded, "Because we've decided." Marjorie was deeply frightened, especially because Jennifer looked very afraid, and June looked determined. Wallace immediately alerted the hospital staff, but her concerns were dismissed. Only hours later, Jennifer was gone. Whether through sheer belief, emotional force, or something science can't quite explain, Jennifer had, in her own words, given up her life. The pact between the twins had long been speculated upon. For years, they believed that one of them had to die for the other to live freely. Jennifer volunteered to be the one to go. June later described it as being washed clean by a tsunami. "I'm free at last, liberated, and at last, Jennifer has given up her life for me." After Jennifer's death, something extraordinary happened. June began to speak. To everyone, it was as if a switch had been flipped. Wallace, who had once known June as a mute presence, returned for a visit and found her talking calmly, openly, and with startling clarity. She remained at Caswell for a short time before being released on parole. Her transition back into society was surprisingly smooth. Within a year, she had moved from a halfway house into her own apartment. She now lives quietly in West Wales, not far from her family, free from psychiatric supervision, and fully accepted by her community. In interviews, June has often said she is living for two. "I feel like I'm living for her," she told the crew of a documentary. "I think that's what she would have wanted, for me to go on living for her. Every day I wake up and say to myself, well, it's one more day for me, but one more day for my sister as well." Whether or not Jennifer's death was a conscious sacrifice or an eerie coincidence, it undeniably marked a profound turning point. It ended the silence, both literally and metaphorically. In life, Jennifer and June were trapped in each other's shadows. In death, Jennifer gave June the one thing no one else could: freedom. The story of the silent twins has captivated psychologists, conspiracy theorists, and storytellers alike, not just because of what happened, but because of how little we truly understand it. At the center of it all lies the troubling question: why did Jennifer have to die for June to live? One of the most accepted explanations is that Jennifer consciously chose to sacrifice herself so that June could experience a normal life. It's a heartbreaking idea that love, or perhaps guilt, drove Jennifer to surrender her life so that her sister might finally be free. But this theory raises a deeper question. Why did it have to be that way? Why couldn't they both have reintegrated into society together? Why did freedom require a death? This leads into the biggest theory around this, a psychological pact born from a bond so intense it became destructive. Experts have proposed that the twins suffered from folie à deux, a rare shared psychosis where one individual's delusions are adopted by another. In this view, Jennifer and June were trapped in a closed circuit of belief, each reinforcing the other's view of reality. But in this interpretation, there's another unsettling implication, that perhaps June was the dominant twin, and that Jennifer, caught in the grip of shared delusion, died because she believed she had to. Some have speculated that June, consciously or not, planted the idea that Jennifer's death was necessary, and Jennifer simply obeyed. Then some look beyond traditional psychology entirely. Some believe the twins' connection wasn't just emotional or mental, but supernatural. Their synchronized movements, their mirrored thoughts, their eerily entwined diaries, these signs led some to wonder if they shared a spiritual bond that transcended explanation. When Jennifer declared she had to die, was it psychic insight or a prophecy fulfilled? Historical cases offer eerie parallels. The Erickson twins, Ursula and Sabina, famously suffered a joint psychotic episode on a UK motorway, acting in perfect synchronicity during a sudden and violent breakdown. The Pollock twins, meanwhile, were believed by some to be reincarnations of their deceased sister, another tale of duality, identity, and impossible connections. In the end, the truth behind June and Jennifer's story may never be fully understood. Was it a tragic act of love, a psychological phenomenon, a chilling example of mind control through closeness, or something stranger still? All we know is that when Jennifer died, June lived and began to speak. Whatever their bond was, it was powerful enough that only death could break it. So, despite years of investigations, interviews, and speculation, many aspects of the silent twins' story remain unresolved. Jennifer's death, its timing, her eerie hunch, and the lack of a medical explanation continue to puzzle experts and readers alike. One of the most chilling questions is whether Jennifer truly caused her own death through sheer psychological force. Myocarditis, the official cause, is rare, particularly in someone so young and with no history of heart problems. There were no signs of poisoning or drug overdose. Could Jennifer have, quite literally, willed herself to die? Another question, was June genuinely freed by her sister's death? Or was something darker at work? The suddenness with which June began to speak and function in society has led some to question if the transformation was simply psychological relief, or the breaking of some internal prison she never realized she was in. Institutional pressures may also have played a role. After over a decade in Broadmoor, under heavy medication, constant surveillance, and the weight of public misunderstanding, could the environment itself have worn Jennifer down to a point of surrender? The system that was supposed to help them never truly seemed to understand them and may have made their situation worse. But here is my theory. That is similar to the one I have mentioned earlier. While the girls were always seen as inseparable, their dynamic wasn't balanced. Jennifer was long believed to be the dominant twin, controlling, intense, and emotionally overwhelming. Their diary entries painted a relationship filled with love, but also fear and resentment. And I don't think those entries were exaggerations. They weren't lying. However, after periods of separation, especially during institutionalization, June began to grow. She gained confidence, found her voice, and started resenting Jennifer's influence. Over time, their roles shifted. June, once the quieter and more submissive twin, became stronger, more independent. Perhaps Jennifer saw that shift. Perhaps she finally understood the impact of her dominance and recognized what she had taken from June over the years. Maybe her final act wasn't just a release for June, but a form of repentance. In the end, I have one final question. Just why did Jennifer have to die? We may never understand what happened between June and Jennifer Gibbons. The silence they shared, the pact they made, and the death that followed continue to haunt anyone who learns their story. But beyond the tragedy lies a deeper mystery. Our society's obsession with twins. Is it the mystery of two lives mirrored so closely, the idea of one soul split in two, or the fear of what happens when that bond becomes too strong? In the case of the silent twins, society saw something it couldn't explain and locked it away, misunderstood, mistreated, and ultimately broken. What do you believe really happened between the silent twins? If you liked this story, please make sure to like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me, and I'll see you in the next one.